everyone, and welcome again to the Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Zahra Al-Jumaili here, and again we're here like every single time to talk about medical healthcare, talk about diseases, talk about biology in general. So today's episode is actually quite important. We'll go way back to the basics of science, of biology, and we talk about the basics of everything we eat. So we have four main things in our body called biological molecules. What does it mean? It means it's macromolecules, big molecules that do a lot of effects and a lot of functions in our body, but we don't actually know how important they are every single day. So I always tell you, you should eat the very good proportions of everything, of fats, of proteins, of carbs, of vegetables and minerals and vitamins and fibers and all of that. But why exactly do we need every single one of them? Why do we exactly need all the proteins and all the carbohydrates and lipids and all of that? We don't actually know. We just know it's useful, but we don't know the exact reason. So now it's my job to tell you every one of them and why are they important. So the first one of them is carbohydrate. What are carbohydrates? From the name, carbo means carbon and hydrate means water. So it's CHO. And it depends on the numbers of how many carbons and how many H's and O's. So why is it important? So carbohydrate, how do we eat it every single day? We eat it with bread, with pasta, with pastries, and every single type of these things, which are the actual very good things like burgers and pizzas and all of that are carbohydrates. We always say do not eat a lot of them, but we do need a small portion of them every single day. Why do we need them? First of all, before going to all of that, we need to know that the main source of energy in our body is glucose. Glucose is the biggest energy in our body. The main instant, fast energy in our body is glucose. All right? So this glucose means instant energy. Glucose equals energy. We need it every single day. We need it in the morning. That's why we say do not skip your breakfast. All right? So we need glucose in the beginning of the day to give us energy to the rest of the day. And by the way, even when Muslims fast, the first thing they break their fast with is dates. All right, so because dates has a lot of glucose, that's why we break our fast with it. So we need this glucose. And of course, we're not going to eat sugary things all day long. So you need to know that carbohydrates, the second they're in your mouth, the second you digest them, they turn into sugars. The carbohydrates are a macromolecule. The small monomer of it is glucose. What does the word monomer mean? It's just like a big Lego house. The small Lego pieces are called monomers, or the small building blocks. So the building blocks of the carbohydrates are glucose. So glucose together makes carbohydrates. So the second you eat it, there are enzymes, believe it or not, in your mouth. So the enzymes are not just in your stomach. Actually, the enzymes are in most of the alimentary canal, which is from the mouth to the opening of the anus to the outside. All of them except the large intestine, they have enzymes. Even the small intestine, the stomach, all of it. So the first step is to digest it in your mouth. That's why sometimes you have a very sweet taste in your mouth, even if you hadn't eaten anything because of the enzymes in your mouth. Anyway, so when we digest the carbohydrates, they turn into glucose. So this glucose goes to your body and becomes a main source of energy. So carbohydrates are very important for you to eat, but of course do not eat a lot of carbohydrates because it will be a lot of sugar, and in the future eating a lot, it will turn into something very wrong. It will make you overweight or could make type 2 diabetes in the future. So it's actually, it's good for you to take a small proportion of carbohydrates every time. So that's about the carbohydrates. So yeah, it is important for you to have it every day, but with reasonable amounts. Number 2, proteins. Proteins are our second and most important big source of importance in our body. So what does it do? Proteins are everywhere in your body. Number 1, proteins are the enzymes. The digestive enzymes are actually proteins. They're made of proteins. Number 2, proteins are your hair and your nails. They're basically purely protein. Proteins are hormones in your body that makes all the important actions. Proteins are your muscles and muscle fibers and how do you actually move. Proteins equals growth. So you will not actually grow and you will not be strong, and especially if you're still in school, you do need protein every single day. So proteins are very, very, very important. And proteins are important because we make them in our body as well. So the DNA makes the proteins as well from amino acids. So that brings us to what is the monomer of protein, which is amino acids. So the small Lego piece, the monomer of proteins, are amino acids. So proteins are very, very important for growth. So we always need them in our diet. That's why when the people who go to the gym and the bodybuilders, they always have huge sources of protein every single day to make their muscles more bulky. So the bulkier the muscles, the more the protein they have in their diet. And of course, we have it in chicken, like all the poultry and meat and fish, and also the egg white, and a lot of sources of beans and legumes and nuts and all of that. Even if you cannot afford the meats and all of these, or even you don't like it, or even you're a vegetarian, you can just get them from the nuts and beans and all the vegetarian sources. So it's always available, it's cheap to have. You have no excuse of not having it. So every single day, you must have a large portion of protein. So it is very important. What is the third thing? The third thing is something called lipids. Lipids basically means fats or fatty acids, or just the fatty things. So lipids, we have a good type of lipid and we have the bad type of lipid. Lipids in general, people know that it's very bad because it makes heart diseases. I talked about it before. Having a lot of lipids in your diet could literally cause you a heart attack, because the lipid gets accumulated on the walls of the arteries and small vessels in your heart, and then suddenly they could stop them. Anything could block them, and the blood supply to your heart could stop. So lipids are very, very bad. But people don't know that it has a lot of good nutritious benefits of the lipids. We would not have lipids in our body if they're purely bad. They will turn into toxins. They're not that bad. So the good amount of lipid, what are they? So lipids are basically formed, the monomers of it, if you like zoom in, you see glycerol, which is a type of alcohol, and fatty acid. The fatty acid is the lipid thing. You should know it's very, very, very important in our cell structure in our body. So if you get any cell in your body, even the skin, even the liver, the stomach, if you zoom in, the maximum zooming in, you will find a cell with a nucleus and cytoplasm and all of that. The cell wall of every cell in our body is formed of phospholipids, which makes us, technically it does makes us alive, and makes our body hold itself just like we are right now. So it's very important in the cell structure. Lipids are very important in other things as well. Some hormones, just like steroids, testosterone, estrogen, those are the hormones that makes us a man and a woman. Testosterone is the male hormone and estrogen is the female hormone, to make the female characteristics, the male characteristics, the genitalia growth. All of that is because of these hormones, and these hormones are actually lipids. So they're very, very important. Number 3, I lost count, but the next importance is that it works as a heat insulator. Right now, you have a layer of fat under your skin at all times, even if it's very, very small layer. Unless you're really, really, really like skin and bones, and that's actually a disease. But not all people, they have a very thin layer of fats underneath their skin. It acts as a heat insulator. So God just basically gave us an inner jacket for us not to feel heat. That's why it makes sense when a little bit overweight people, they don't feel heat as much as the skinny people, because they do have a thicker layer of fat. So it works as a heat insulator as well, and it works as an energy source. I did say that the glucose is our main energy source, right? But let me ask you a question and take some time to think about it. If you don't eat for a whole week, you will drink water, of course, but you don't eat, would you die? Actually, no. You will be still alive. All right, you will feel hunger, you will feel tired, you will feel very weak, but you will not die. A week is not a big time for you to die. You might die after a few months, by the way, maybe a month or 2. But why don't you die? Because your body will take the source of energy from your fats. That's why you will get skinnier, but you will not die, because your fats are being absorbed by your body as a long-term energy source. So right now, from what I said, we have 2 energy sources. First, the glucose, which is an instant energy source. I eat, I move. That's it. And if I don't eat, I have my long-term energy source, which is the fats in my body. That's why if I don't eat for a long while, I get skinnier. That's the basics of people doing diets. When they don't eat a lot or they do eat healthy, less fats, I don't build new fats in my body, but I absorb them. On the contrary, I absorb them and use them equals I get skinnier. So it's my large, long-term source of energy. So yeah, I told you everything has a scientific explanation. Everything makes sense. Whatever we do makes sense. So the last thing, we have nucleic acid or nucleotides, which are the basics of DNA. That's the last macromolecule. I'm just going to talk about them in half a minute because we need a whole episode to talk about what is the DNA. Anyway, the nucleotides are the monomers of DNA. What is DNA? These are our genetic materials, the genetic thing that makes me who I am. Half of your dad, half of your mom equals you. So these genetics, half of them from your dads, half of them from your moms. Where are these genetic material exactly? I told you 5 minutes ago, if you zoom in to any cell in your body, even your hair, you will find a cell and a nucleus. Inside this nucleus, which is like kind of the brain of the cell, it has a lot of DNA. That's why in the movies, when we want to do a paternity DNA test, we take a hair and we take like a swab from the mouth because they're very painless to take to make sure the DNA, whether it was a parent or not. So it makes sense, right? So yeah, the DNA is very, very important. We will have a whole episode to talk about it later on because it's much more important to talk about it in 2 minutes. But now you should know that it's basically the genetic material in your body. So the point of my whole episode, that you need to have a very balanced diet every single day, balanced meals. You need to have your proteins, your carbohydrates, and your small amount of lipids every single day. And above all of that, stay hydrated at all costs. Nothing will happen in your body unless you stay hydrated because our body is more than 60% water. So you need to always, your enzymes will not work without water. So please stay healthy, stay hydrated, and exercise every day. And that's it for today. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.